Welcome back, friends. We're gonna work on some exponents today. You've already got a lot of the things you need, but we're gonna fly through the rest of these things here pretty quick. So, first one today is raising a power to a power. So, if we have x squared, and that's in parentheses, and then it's raised to another power. So we've got this base, it's got an exponent, and then that is raised to another power out here. Okay, x squared to the fifth is basically x squared times x squared times x squared times x squared times x squared. So if we were to write it out long ways like this, then we could use our rule that we learned the other day, where if we have the same base, we can add all these together. But no one wants to write out all that stuff. So our shortcut rule is if we've got the power to a power, then we are just going to multiply the two exponents. So 2 times 5 is going to be x to the 10th. So that would be our answer there. And then the same thing would happen if we have whole numbers. So if we have 2 squared, and this would work with fractions and everything too, just gets a little more complicated. But 2 squared raised to the third power, I would do 2 times 3, that's my shortcut, so I get 2 to the 6th. And then because it is a whole number, I can punch that in a calculator, or maybe I can do it in my head or on paper, and I figure out that 2 to the 6th is 64. Alright, so pretty simple, but you just got to recognize it when you see it, and you can't get it mixed up with all the other rules. The other new rule we're learning today is raising a product to a power. So product, hopefully everybody remembers, is the answer to a multiplication problem. So we've got something that's being multiplied, and then we are going to raise that multiplication to another power. So if I just have x times y, so xy in parentheses squared, then basically it just means that that squared has to go to the x and the y. So our answer would be x squared and y squared. I like to think of it kind of like distributive property, but you're just distributing it almost backwards. Okay, the 2 has to go to the y and the 2 has to go to the x. Alright, if a whole number is involved, it's still the same thing. Okay, we've got 3 times x squared, and all that's in parentheses. That product, 3 times x squared, is in parentheses, and we're squaring that. So that means the 3 has to get squared, so that's 3 squared, and the x squared has to get squared. So if x squared is getting squared, well then that's our rule that we learned from up here. So x squared to the second power, or x squared squared, is going to multiply the two exponents, and I get x to the fourth. And then 3 squared, hopefully everybody remembers, 3 squared is just 9. So my final answer would be 9x to the fourth. We got a few more examples here, but don't worry, we're going to continue flying through these to get you on your way to your lesson. Alright, so if I've got x to the fourth times x to the fourth raised to the third power, this is the power raised to a power, so that is x to the fourth to the third, so that's going to be 4 times 3. So I have this x to the fourth over here, times now x to the 4 times 3 is going to be x to the 12th. So now that takes me back to the rule from last time. I just have x to the 4th times x to the 12th, so it's powers with the same base, okay? And so all I have to do is add those exponents and get x to the 16th as my final answer. Alright, same thing would happen here. 2 to the 5th times 2 to the 4th squared, it's the same exact thing. So I would get 2 to the 5th, 2 to the 4th squared, so 4 times 2 is 8, making that 2 to the 8th. And then 5 times, not 5 times 8, but I have 2 to the 5th times 2 to the 8th, so I would add, okay, just like I did up there, and I would get 2 to the 13th. Now, the problem is 2 to the 13th ends up being such a big number that your calculator is probably going to give you some kind of weird error message. So if the number gets too gigantic and your calculator won't spit it out correctly, then we can just go ahead and box it up. But always, if it's a whole number, I want you to try and punch it in, see if you can get the actual answer. Alright, now we're going to get down to these. They're a little bit more complicated. I may have not even left myself enough room, so we'll see here. Alright, so first we have 4x to the fourth raised to the third power, and then we have 2xy cubed raised to the second power. So first things first, I would have 4 to the third, then I would have x to the fourth to the third, so that's going to be 4 times 3, x to the 12th. Then I've got 2 squared, then I've got x squared, and then I've got y to the third squared, so then I'm going to multiply these. Okay, remember that's my new rule that I learned today, so that's going to be y to the sixth. Alright, now same thing. I've got to multiply together the things that go together. So first thing I want to do is I want to figure out what 4 to the third is. So 4 to the third, 4 times 4 would be 16, and then 16 times 4 would be 64. So I've got 64, and then 2 squared over here is 4, so times another 4 would be 256. And you can use a calculator to get that if you don't want to write it on paper, or you can't do it in your head, or you don't remember, or whatever. Alright, now we've got x to the 12th times x squared. So remember, this goes back to our rule from not earlier today, but last time. Okay, so we're going to add the exponents because it's the same base, the x squared and the x to the 12th, so that's going to make x to the 14th. And then we've still got that y to the 6th out there, so that just stays by itself out there. And I get 256 x to the 14th times y to the 6th. Alright, another good example here, we have x squared raised to the negative fourth. Well, same thing, okay? I'm going to multiply here because it's the power of a power, so x to the negative 8. But now I got to go all the way back to what I did the very first day we did these. Okay, that negative exponent can't be in my final answer. Okay, so I've got to take that negative exponent and I've got to move it to the bottom. So that becomes x to the 8th. If there's not anything else up here, like the coefficient is a 1, then that means I've got to put a 1 on top right there. So I get 1 over x to the 8th. Alright, down here, hopefully you can read my writing. I've got 4 to the negative 1. And then this is a s, okay, s cubed to the negative 2. So all of that is to the negative 2. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get this product of a power, and I want to go ahead and get this negative 2 kind of distributed, for lack of a better word, to both those things. Alright, so I want to say 4 negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. And then s cubed to the negative 2, so I'm going to multiply 3 times negative 2, and that's going to be s to the negative 6th. Alright, so 4 squared is just 4 squared, which is 16, but this s to the negative 6th, remember that has to go to the bottom, because I got to get rid of that negative, so that's just going to be s to the 6th. So my final answer on that one is going to be 16 over s to the 6th. Alright, we've got 2 more over here. We'll start with this easier one first, and then we'll come up here to this hard one. I may even erase this so I have a little more room. But I've got x squared times y to the 4th. So x squared to the 4th is just going to be x to the 8th. Alright, and then I've got y to the 4th. So, bam! Nice and easy, pretty simple right there. Alright, so remember, if there's not an exponent, remember that exponent is a 1. Okay, so just 4 times 1, and that's where you get the 4 from. Alright, so let me erase that real quick. And we'll do this top one up here. We've got a cubed b to the 4th all to the negative 2. And then we got a to the negative 3, b to the negative 5, all to the negative 4. Alright? So we're just going to go step by step. We're just going to work it out. We'll try and use our rules along the way here. So a cubed to the negative 2 is going to be a to the negative 6th. B to the 4th to the negative 2 is going to be b to the negative 8. We've got a to the negative 3 to the negative 4th. So that's going to be a to the 12th, because remember a negative times a negative is going to be positive. And then we got b to the negative 5th to the negative 4th. It's going to be b to the 20th. Okay? So now you can just do the work from there, or if it helps you to reorganize it to kind of make sure you know what you're doing, then you can do that too. So if we want to put the a's together, a to the negative 6th and a to the 12th, and then b to the negative 8 and b to the 20. Remember, when you have the same base, all you have to do is add the exponents. So if we have a 12 and a negative 6, or a negative 6 plus 12, that's the same thing as 12 minus 6. So 12 minus 6, that's easy money, alright? So we just get a to the 6th, alright? And then the same thing over here, negative 8 plus 20 is just the same thing as 20 minus 8. So we get b to the 12th. So now what started off with a lot of negatives, what looks like a lot of confusion, really isn't that hard. We end up with a to the 6th, b to the 12th. Just like I told you, we flew through that lesson. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you're studying hard, staying safe, having a good time.